السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم في الأولين، وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك على حبيبنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم في الآخرين، اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم كلما ذكره الذاكرون الأبرار وكلما غفر عن ذكره الغافلون. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who knows what we reveal and knows what we conceal and even knows what the animals feel. We thank him, we praise him, and on him we have reliance, and it's to him when we turn to for true guidance. We ask him to send his peace, his blessings, his mercy on the best of human beings and prophets Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on whom be praised until the very end of our days. We ask him for steadfastness, guidance, mercy, and to never lead us astray, and for him to save us on Judgment Day. Welcome, alhamdulillah, to our session, Contemporary Obstacles in Learning Arabic. It's a legacy discussions series. It's a series where we hope to talk about some real issues, of course, in relationship to the Islamic disciplines and sciences, as well as other discussions that relate to contemporizing and contextualizing our narrative and relating it to how we can have an applied understanding of Islam throughout a number of fields. I love this series personally because I get to speak to, alhamdulillah, great people such as our instructor, Sheikh Dirie Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum, Habibi.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayakum Allah. How are you?
Things in Canada.
It's cold.
Yeah, I know. I didn't get a chance to say that.
Yeah,
We're getting cold here actually now too, so I'm feeling maybe 1/10 of what you guys
probably.
feel. Alhamdulillah. Luckily for joining, man. We actually went back and forth on this particular topic in particular, and kind of seeing what we can talk about, which makes Arabic a struggle. It is a struggle. I mean, we know, maybe behind the scenes kind of look that we're kind of making it more and more maybe in terms of marketing Arabic as something easy and trying to make it, of course, something attainable. And that's our marquee is even when we were doing the marketing. It's easy, attainable, accessible, and that's something you even mentioned in your video. But of course, the daunting nature of Arabic is very real for a lot of people with fears, with obstacles. So the first thing, I just wanted to just generally ask you, in terms of this discussion of contemporary obstacles in learning Arabic, what are some of the real struggles that you've personally seen in your own path, as well as in teaching alhamdulillah for over like mashallah over 10 years Arabic?
أولا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. One of there's actually many challenges, but let's just focus on the contemporary challenges that one faces when learning Arabic. There's actually a bit of an echo. Hasib, anything you can do about that? Is that better? Yeah. No, same thing. I'll just keep speaking in the meantime. Is something a lot of people complain about. Yeah, it's good now. Something a lot of people complain about, which is lack of time. Lack of time. And this isn't, specific for Arabic. This is for anything anybody wants to learn, right? People are always complaining about time, lack of time. And it's quite ironic that we live in an era where we have so many, devices, so much technology that is supposed to make our lives easier. Yet we find ourselves more and more busy. So lack of time is probably the number one obstacle when learning anything, especially learning Arabic.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you think that that's a real problem in the reality that is it a lack of time or lack of management of time? I mean, look, everybody wants something to, to attain something, right? I want to be rich. I want to know the stock market and I want to invest off of the best thing ever in the shortest period of time. But is it really unattainable because I don't have time to put into it? When I look at it myself, and I'm saying this from just a real perspective of recent, I found myself not giving enough time to learn about it rather than me actually not having time, because I am going to the gym and spending extra half an hour, 45 minutes talking to my friends. I am, spending extra time on some social media aspect, talking to my friends on WhatsApp and Telegram. That adds up. If you sit there and you do the calculation, you're like, wait a minute, I've spent like an hour and a half this day. Yes, it has some social component to it. So is it really the component of lack of time, or is it lack of managing time? What do you think?
For sure. It's definitely lack of, poor time management. Um, Look, the way I look at it is people make time for sin. You know what I mean? People, when it comes to watching that movie, I'm not saying all movies are, sinful, but what I'm saying is when it comes to haram actions, people will make time for it. And
Mhm.
if Arabic is something you're truly passionate about and your niyyah is sound, I think you'll find time. So it's exactly like you mentioned, it's poor time management. And that's something that we should all aspire to, fix and work on. Right.
100%. I mean, for me, like the end all, I think, is the what is the result? What is the buyout of me
Mm,
putting time into something? Like, why do I spend so much time trying to figure out cryptocurrency?
mm,
Right?
mm,
If it's eventually because this thing will make me rich. I look at other people
mm,
who have bought Bitcoin when it was
mm,
early, and they're like, "Yo,
mm,
I made 50,000 or whatever." And honestly, it is sometimes that shallow
mm,
of what is the result, what am I getting out of it that will actually
mm,
push me to do something. And subhanallah, for us as Muslims, I've actually resulted to this kind of halal guilt tripping, right?
mm,
Which is to make people feel like, hey, honestly, how bad are you going to feel, or not only that, how much FOMO are you going to have, like fear of missing out,
mhm,
of the fact that you can't understand some level of tafsir. You can't have a deeper appreciation of the Quran and the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad because at the end of the day, you need to know Arabic for some
mm.
element of that. Of course, not you need to know Arabic to be Muslim or to
Yeah.
appreciate these deeper points. But how did that play out for you? I mean, when you were learning, this idea of the end result leading your motivation to overcome the lack of time, or even helping you time manage.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned, looking at the end result, right? If and this actually ties into another obstacle that I wanted to get into, which is similar to people losing motivation when it
Mm,
comes to learning Arabic, any language rather. People, they start off really passionate, and
right.
I personally found, I don't know what you think, but I personally found that like in relation to even their iman, right? Some people when
Mm,
they're like an iman high, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna learn Arabic, right? And
right.
we all know iman increases and decreases. So
Mhm.
3 months into the program, person's iman dips and their interest in Arabic also dips, right? So
Mm,
I think the solution is to um, try your best to stay motivated and remember what it was that motivated you in the beginning, right?
mhm,
Just try
mhm,
to
mhm.
try to keep that in the back of your mind. For some people, it could be, for example, next Ramadan, I want to be able to understand the Imam in Taraweeh,
Mm,
pre-COVID talk, right? People were very passionate and very motivated to learn Arabic so they could understand the Quran. Just keep that, constantly refresh that in your mind and keep that focus and
right.
that goal in front of you. And that's one of the ways you'll stay motivated. And if you're motivated, you'll find the time for anything.
100%, man.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think that the aspect of, one of the obstacles I think we wanted to segue into is kind of the idea of losing interest and motivation, and
Mm,
also iman in the process. And people are like, losing iman. How do you lose iman when you learn Arabic?
mm,
The element of over dramatization and kind of like uh this notion that every time you open a grammar book, it's going to be some amazing point about the Quran that's going to raise your iman at the highest of levels. And that's not the reality. I mean, not every program is set to where it's immediately related to some end result of higher faith, right?
mm,
It's
mm,
about the process, this process of learning Arabic, which will
mm,
get you to that level. And I think with Arabic, when we were designing the program with
mm,
yourself on with Arabic Legacy, we talked about this, right? We talked about how to maintain those components, and we said, hey, listen, as the students develop, we spoke about this notion of adding spiritual reading texts,
mm,
and making sure to relate the aspect and component of learning Arabic to how it relates to spirituality by reading some of those texts and then
mm.
relating it back to the Arabic. I mean, how do you overcome this obstacle other than people who start an Arabic program? They're like, wait a minute, this isn't like an immediate gratification of higher iman. How would you answer that?
Yeah, that's another obstacle. Actually, it's that Arabic is boring. Is that
Mhm.
basically what you're saying?
Right, more or less, right?
Yeah, yeah. Just let's not sugarcoat it. Arabic is boring. It's
Right,
hard.
grammar.
Yeah, the grammar especially. The thing is, it's not supposed to be fun. Like
Mhm.
nobody, these grammarians back in the day weren't, partying while, teaching Arabic and learning Arabic, right? It's not supposed to be fun. That's number one.
Mhm.
And let's be real, other forms of ibadah are not fun, right? You're from Texas. When it's summer
Right.
and Ramadan is, I don't speak Fahrenheit, but when it's like 30, 35, 40 degrees and you're in the sun fasting, all right, that's not fun, right? But
Mhm.
you do
Mhm.
it because of the end goal, right? So
Right. Right.
likewise, Arabic is not supposed to be fun. And I don't even agree that that's not fun. It depends basically on who your teacher is. Your teacher can make it
Right.
fun, right?
Right.
Some people, if you look at math or English or any school subject you had good
Right.
teachers, you had bad teachers, right? Some teachers
Right.
made
Right.
the subject more enjoyable. Some made it a living jahannam. You know what I mean? It all depends on your instructor.
Right.
So one thing we do though, in particular with the grammar, is we introduce it slowly, naturally, in context, right? I mean, one of the things I heard from many students is, I hate grammar. I don't want to learn grammar. Oh, teacher, can we not do grammar? It's like they're actually learning it. They are learning it, but they don't even notice, which is the funny part, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's pretty much it.
Okay. I mean, one of the components that I think when it comes to like people's iman, when it comes to Arabic,
Mm,
how do you not you know, I think have an over expectation that Arabic will do that for you, and how do
mm,
you develop to the point where it will become a very amazing motivator of increasing faith? I mean, again, two-part question:
mm,
how do you avoid from over dramatizing,
mm.
the basics and learning foundational Arabic? But then, how do you keep it motivated to knowing that, hey, it's going to eventually get to a point of where your Arabic, inshallah, will be at such a level that
Mm.
it will give you those points of deeper reflection. How do you get from point A to point B?
Wow, that's a tough question. That's I'm not really really sure how to answer that.
Mhm.
Um, from your experience, what did you do like when you were learning Arabic?
I mean, for me, one of the things that helped me is while I was learning the basic grammar, is to always take it back to the Quran and
Mm,
find the application of the law or the particular
mm,
grammar principle in the Quran to keep me motivated. So I'll give
mm,
you an example. Like when we study in term one, huruf al jar, right?
mm.
The
Preposition.
letters that, yes, the preposition that make the uh, particular nouns with the more or less a kasra at the end,
Mm,
oversimplifying this by a million. But
yep.
the idea is, so I actually learned that, hey, this letter has a kasra at the end because of this preposition fi before, like fil masjidi, right?
Mm,
And that was the greatest thing to me, because I was like, oh my God, like I finally realized why those letters are the way they are.
mm,
And when I looked at the Quran, I was like, okay, this actually is helping me on a day-to-day basis. The
mm,
more every single lesson that I learn, the uh,
mm,
the more it's actually helping me understand the Quran, from even if it's a 2% or 3% or 4%, or that aspect of it was
mm,
actually a motivating factor. So I said to myself at that point, I said, hey, listen, if I have the opportunity to increase my understanding and comprehension of the Quran by even a lesson, and
mm,
it's that applicable, then it actually helped me in deriving more. The second aspect is actually, every component of Arabic has a meaning. So
mm,
relating a meaning to the lesson. So for example, the huruf al-jar, like the preposition, we said each of them has meaning.
mhm,
There's meaning to it. Like fi has a meaning. So
mm,
when you understand the meaning and the depth of that meaning, relating it to some component of the Quran or Sunnah or the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad, etc., it actually gives you more depth in the Quran. So, for example, fi, it does not always mean in,
mm,
right? As you know, like it's not always in the masjid or in the desk or
mm,
etc. But it has a deeper component as well in a balaghi perspective or eloquent perspective. So
mm,
anyway, those small little things helped me to get to a bigger picture. And that bigger picture was, hey, listen, the more understanding you have of Arabic, the deeper you will have an appreciation of
mm,
the sources of Islam, the deeper you will have an appreciation of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's the height of the Arabic language.
mm,
The
mm,
more and deeper appreciation you have of the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
mm,
So that was me personally, and I kind of like coupled it with what we developed in Legacy. Inshallah, the most exciting thing to me, honestly, man, like when you told me we're going to have the Arabic enrichment program at the end
mm,
of this. So the
mm,
foundational is terms 1 to 6, where we take you from
mm,
basic reading and comprehension to reading texts and understanding them in six
yeah,
terms. That's crazy, right?
yeah,
And then the next 2 terms would be that we call applied linguistics enrichment, where
mm,
they start reading Ibn Juzay and like
yeah,
Imam al-Haddad and spirituality.
mm,
That is, I was to me, I was like, yo, I wish I had a program like that, because we
mm,
had to do that outside of the curriculum,
mm,
right?
mm, mm,
And being able to then directly just deal with, okay, this is my end goal. So at any point when a student asks, okay, where am I going with this, right? Is my point to finish the Arabiya Bayna Yadayk?
mm,
No, your point is you're going to get to Ibn Juzay, inshallah. You're going to get to Tafsir Ibn Juzay. You're going
mm,
to read with Sheikh Dirie in a Ramadan program, which we haven't released to anybody, a special program, inshallah. You're going to go into reading spirituality texts.
mm,
This is the goal. So it's going to be that hands on. And I think for the average person who's listening to us, they're saying, okay, where am I headed? Well, you have a definitive area where you're going to
yeah.
overcome some of those obstacles of saying, okay, this is okay, another principle to memorize, but rather it's another thing to comprehend more about the Quran, get deeper into the language, and be able to appreciate some of those texts when you get there. So you should focus on this point, because it's going to actually have a direct impact on the things later when we
Yeah,
get into tafsir.
that's yeah, that's another major obstacle, contemporary obstacle, which is no clear goal.
Right,
Right?
right,
People say, I want to learn Arabic. It's like,
right,
what about Arabic? Are you trying to understand that Lebanese singer? Like, what about Arabic?
right, exactly.
It's an ocean, and you're saying, I want to learn Arabic.
Hmm.
So there's no clear goal. There's no direction. It's like you're trying to go somewhere, but you have no target, right? You're just roaming around. You're gonna get lost, and you're gonna feel like there's no progress made.
Right.
And what happens is people just give up. They say, I've been learning Arabic with no goal in mind for years. I'm
Hmm.
wasting my time, right? So the solution is quite simple. You have to have short-term goals and long-term goals.
Hmm.
Short-term goals can be something like, I'm going to complete this program, or
Right.
I'm going to, at least finish this first book of this 10-part series, or whatever it is. Short-term goals, set those. Then the long-term goal needs to be like something like, I want to understand, Tafsir Ibn Kathir, or I want to be able to read a book of tafsir from cover to cover by myself, just
Right.
me in the dictionary, for example, right? So short-term goals and long-term goals. This is
Hmm.
a major obstacle with a lot of people. I just want to learn Arabic. It's not enough. What about Arabic?
Right.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Mm,
Excellent, man. This leads me to something more maybe practical, and that is, look, man, we've been around for a long while. I mean, I remember when Arabic programs started to become a thing. Everybody was flying out to a country and saying, "Hey, we need to go to
mm,
this country to learn." And X country, Egypt, and
mm,
versus Saudi, versus Jordan, versus some other
mm.
program. Even France started to have. Remember this Mahad in France
I
that
don't
people started
remember this.
graduating from.
Okay.
Uh, and then like that whole discussion among students when they get lost about which program you need to study with and all this other stuff, which is the most ideal, which is the best. But one of the things that I mean, from a personal perspective, when I looked at all those things, I was giving advice to people, is the lack of practical information.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, people were talking about programs, but nobody really addressed the practicality of those programs to
Mm.
an Arabic that is, applicable.
Yeah.
So, speak about this obstacle. Arabic programs don't give practical information
Yeah.
necessarily.
So this is two parts. There's the vocab, and then there's the like the grammar component. So the
Mhm.
vocab, what happens is a lot of these curriculums are old. And the vocab, I remember when I was learning Arabic in Riyadh, the curriculum we had, I think it was written in like the 80s.
Mhm.
Um, I remember one word like a telegram, um, and like really ancient words that like, when was the last time you sent a telegram? I've never done one in my life. Some of the younger
Telegram,
viewers,
not the messaging app. We're talking about real telegrams,
a
right?
real physical telegram that
Right, right,
I was born like just a little bit after it, I think.
right, right,
We were learning how to send postcards and
right.
you know, things like that, which, you know, are not really applicable and relevant. So there's the vocab issue, and then the other issue is people introducing complex grammatical concepts that will not necessarily help you learn the language.
Mhm, mhm.
You know, things like, oh, the kufis and the busy. Kufis are not people that wear kufis. Like, kufi is
Oh,
like
like Kufi from Kufa, from Iran, from Iran.
it was a joke. It
Right,
was a
right,
joke.
right. I was like, what are Kufis? Got you, got
Yeah,
you.
so Kufi from Kufa, yeah, modern day Iraq, and
Right.
then
Versus
Basra.
the Boston.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so these like schools of thought, and people are being
They're not
introduced.
gangs. You're in New York.
No, they're not gangs. They're schools of thought in
Right, right,
grammar, and people are being introduced to these concepts really, really early on, and it's not helping them learn Arabic. It's
right,
really not. You know,
right, right.
you come out of the Arabic class knowing that there's over 30 opinions on the amil for the mubtada, like what made the mubtada in the raf case. Over
Right,
30 opinions.
right.
None of those
Like which
learning
came
that.
first, the chicken or the egg? Did the mubtada come in the
Yeah,
am?
your iman is not going to increase. You're not going to learn Arabic better by knowing
Right,
that. It's just,
right.
as one of my professors said, this is like, what did he say? He's like, this is teaching people عن اللغة, not اللغة, but عن
Mm,
اللغة. Like, you're teaching people about the language. You're not
right.
teaching them the language, right?
Mm,
So what we've adopted is basically the Arabiya Bini Day curriculum, which is something much more up to date.
mhm.
And when I introduce a concept, right? Say, for example, let me try to remember from some of the stuff I created. Um, like, for example, the masadir,
Right.
right? For tafa'ala, we said a tafa'ul, right?
Mhm.
I'll mention as many verses I can find with a tafa'ul, the masdar
Nice.
being mentioned. So
MashaAllah.
alhaakum at-takathur,
Yeah.
at-tafa'ul, right? Then I'll get students, and this is term one I'm talking about. I'll get students to
Right.
like look it up in the dictionary, at-takathur, find that in the dictionary. They'll know that, you know, takathur is from kathura. They'll look that up in the dictionary. Then they'll see what Roman numeral that corresponds to in hands were. They'll look it up. They'll tell me
Mm,
takathur is mutual, you know, rivalry for piling things up, gathering things,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm.
So that's practical.
Right.
And I don't know how practical people want, but
Mhm.
I'm giving you Quranic ayat. The
Right.
curriculum that we're learning Arabic from is very useful. Right away, you can start, you know,
Mhm.
introducing yourself. You can ask for an apartment. You can, you know, a lot of um, things that are used today. Basically, a lot
Right.
of usage, practical usage for the
Right.
language.
And that's one thing that for me it becomes it always was problematic to me, but when I
Mm,
actually started studying for as well, like for example, and I'm not negging the classical textual like emphasis where people are saying okay ajrumiya or nazm al ajrumiya or mulhat al arab and all these books,
mm,
these texts which were written essentially for Arabs
mm,
to learn Arabic, right? And it's decontextualized entirely. It's sometimes just straightforward. This is what it is, so that it allows the teacher to extrapolate according to their own to
mm,
their own. And a lot of students, because there's this novelty
mm,
and this like love of return to grandeur kind of mentality of we're stuck in the shadows of the past, they actually will be amiss to something new because they're like, well, no, we have to stick to the tradition as hard as we possibly can. And
mm,
we're saying, no, Habibi, there's nothing wrong with studying those books. And there's nothing wrong actually to refer to them because they are our texts which we all refer to. That's where we're getting things from.
mm.
But to contemporize its application
Yeah,
makes learning easier for you. So once you have that, you
mm,
can then actually go back and appreciate it more. We're not
mhm,
saying detach from it and
exactly,
astaghfirullah, why are you stuck in the stone age? No, actually that's not it at all. What we want
exactly.
to do is actually make it more accessible.
Mm,
Speak about this because I think sometimes this is this is a major obstacle. The
mm,
notion that we must stick to traditional texts in 2020, Canada,
mm,
America,
mm,
UK, South Africa, whatever,
mm,
and we should not
mm.
develop new curricula.
I think every subject was traditionally was taught in their time,
Hmm.
and books were updated. So let's look at fiqh, for example, right?
Right.
Look at Imam Nawawi, for example, in his era, or someone a little bit after Imam Nawawi. The
Hmm.
books that they would teach in Shafi fiqh were, you know, Minhaj, At-Talibin of Nawawi, some of the earlier books, maybe Abu Ishaq al-Shirazi, etc.
Hmm.
Notice how Imam Nawawi wrote a new book for his time, right? He wasn't just saying, guys,
Whatever.
yeah, he wasn't saying, guys, let's just only focus on of Imam Shafi'i, right?
Hmm.
These all subjects, develop, they evolve, they change, for a lack of better words. And I feel like to restrict people when it comes to Arabic to Ajrumiya, Qatranada, Alfiya only is completely incorrect. And that's, even if you were going to do that, that's just one component of Arabic. That's just one component, right?
Right. Of course.
So I just feel like every other subject um, was updated, and newer books were written.
Hmm.
And this isn't specific to Arabic, right? I mean, even if somebody wanted to study usul al-fiqh or some Sirah, for example, are
Right.
you going to tell them read Ibn Hisham? Was it Ibn Hisham, or what was his name? Hasib?
ابن هشام شرح ألفية ابن مالك.
No, لا ايش اسمه Sirah.
مغني لبيب ابن oh
No,
yeah, ابن هشام ابن إسحاق, yeah.
yeah, Ibn Ishaq, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So if somebody wants to study Sirah today, would you say, no, you have to read that book, nothing else,
Right.
right? Or you give them modern day books, easier to digest, and then move on to those more advanced classical books, right? So
Yeah.
Arabic likewise. And again, when Ajrum was writing his book, when Ibn Malik was writing his book, it was for a purpose. It wasn't for language learning. It wasn't for people learning Arabic as a language. It wasn't for you. Ultimately, it wasn't for
Hmm.
you.
Yeah. It was written for Arabs at that time to learn Arabic
To
or
learn
who wish
Arabic
to
grammar.
learn Arabic
To learn
grammar.
Arabic grammar. It was not designed to as a curriculum to learn Arabic as a
Right.
language, right?
Yeah, and then that's we set out when we try to develop this program, and we had this conversation back and forth, and I really appreciated that component that when it came to the curriculum design, it came from guys who didn't know Arabic at all,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And who went through the struggles of university
yeah,
and high school. So may Allah Azza wa Jal make us of the righteous, inshallah. But I'm not Ibn Ajrum and you're not Ibn Malik. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
But at the end of the day, it's you're going to be learning from the perspective of a person who had the same struggles, and I think that's what the key element is.
yeah,
In many as a solution to the obstacles of learning Arabic in
mm,
contemporizing, contextualizing it, is
mm.
it has to come from the perspective of a person who's gone through the same thing as you are.
For
You know what I
sure,
mean?
for
So,
sure.
and I think that's one thing I appreciate.
Mm,
Just reading even like the comments from our students with you, right?
mm,
And they're just like, man, I didn't know like our just basically the expressions and phrases a teacher could understand. I'm like, yeah, because Sheikh Dirie's been, he's not from a different planet, which everybody kind of assumes. You have to have a teacher who absolutely is completely detached from your reality,
yeah,
lives in some desert or
yeah,
some place.
yeah, yeah.
Why do you think that is? I just want to ask like that question. Why do you think there is this novelty and love
Mm.
of the fact that you have to have something foreign for it to be authentic?
That's we stepped out of Arabic. That's more of a sociology,
Right, right.
psychology. You can ask the Jungian analyst that. I don't know. Um,
I
I
got you. I
don't
got you.
know. That's a more philosophical thing. But another obstacle that I wanted to just highlight, before we digress too much,
Sure.
is cost. I feel like that's a
Mm,
contemporary obstacle
right.
for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So let's talk about cost. We don't have to mention any institutes or compare,
Of
what
course.
we have and others.
Yep.
Um, but even one of the students, at least two of my students, studied Arabic in university, and they probably spent a lot of money on university Arabic, and both will attest to the fact that they didn't learn that much from the Arabic from the online university.
Yeah, I
Sorry, not
remember.
online. Sorry, not online. Universities.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of programs are expensive, and this is an obstacle for some. But there's two ways we can talk about this now. You want to answer the cost? You want to discuss?
Yeah, man. I mean, look,
Mm,
this is always difficult because you don't want to get into this concept of like undermining any other program. Look,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm I'm of the belief that look, everybody is worth it.
Mm,
Honestly,
mm,
everybody's trying to get and do the same work, and alhamdulillah, everybody's doing a great job. I don't want to get into the business of saying, we're better in or anything in any way,
yeah.
of course. But I do want to say something very straightforward,
Mm,
and that is, everyone that comes up to us, they actually ask twice,
mm,
almost.
mm,
Uh, is this for one term or is this for the entire program? Like the cost that we
mm,
set. The
mm,
notion for us is to make it more relatable, more accessible for people to be able to go, and not to
mm,
like put a dent in people's entire bank account, and,
mm,
and, and and trying to get them to have quality education and accessible, obviously, to people who
mm,
can't afford it.
mm, mm,
But honestly, the cost thing, man, for a person that, I'm not joking with you when I said that there were people who were in the, you know, thousands of dollars who would study and go to Egypt and go to all these other places, which for sure have their benefits of
mm,
immersion,
mm, mm,
and which for sure have the benefits of your entire life becomes Arabic, regardless of whether you even want to study anymore. You think Arabic is boring. Guess what? You're stuck in an Arabic country.
mm,
So رغم عنفك, you have to learn.
mm,
But what we wanted to do is create a program that is dynamic and so cost effective that it generally is something that, if you truly want it, cost will not be the thing that deters you.
yeah,
That was our motto, and you know that.
yeah.
And I think for everyone that has the ability
Mhm,
to just say, you know what, it genuinely is. It might be cliche to a lot of people, but it's about, are you going to take that extra Starbucks, coffee a day to just
mhm,
learn Arabic, right? You just
mhm, mhm.
sacrifice that, go make your own coffee. And then, by the way, the funny thing is, Sheikh Diri is like a coffee connoisseur, and this guy has like
Don't
all the know-how, like
don't
ijazat
get
and
me
coffee.
started. Yeah,
I
don't
know,
get me
yeah.
started.
So the idea is,
Mm,
the costing, literally, we didn't want it to be a factor,
yeah,
and I
for
think
sure.
that is the best and most effective way to make it sustainable, and make it for people that want to learn,
Mm,
and giving them, mashallah, so many options for them to be able
yeah.
to afford it. Yeah.
You mentioned immersion, so let's talk about that. There's two issues I find here, two other obstacles, contemporary obstacles when it comes to learning Arabic. The first of them is not using the language enough.
Right.
And the second one, which is actually different, is not being exposed enough,
Right.
right?
Right. 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 Right.
More of like an input and output type of thing. So when
Mm.
it comes to not using the language, people feel that they have to travel, right, to learn Arabic. And
Right.
what I say is that traveling is um it's not a condition, right? It's not a condition, and it might not even necessarily help. Because you and I have seen Sheikh Hasib overseas. You'll travel to Medina, you think, okay, I'm in an Arab land. But
Right.
next thing you know, you're only chilling with Americans. You're only chilling with British. You're only
Right.
chilling with Canadians.
You find yourself in Applebee's.
Yeah,
Or,
exactly, exactly. And you
right.
ask for the English menu, and you
Right.
speak to that Filipino
You
worker
have
in
a
English.
large
And you get your
collection of
12,
halal choices to
yeah,
eat.
you get your 12-ounce ribeye steak with your
Right.
garlic mash and your steamed vegetables. I'm really hungry.
Okay.
You know, so like you're traveling, but you're not even immersed. Like, there's no immersion happening,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, and at the same time, it's not a condition. All right. So there are different theories. I'm not, a linguist or anything like that, but there are different theories on how many hours of that language you need to be exposed to per day to actually like fully
Right.
understand it.
Right.
And there are other ways you can simulate, right?
Mhm.
Immersion by watching kids cartoons in Arabic.
Mhm.
You can listen to podcasts in Arabic. You can watch whatever movie you're going to watch, but dub it in Arabic, for example.
Right.
Um, just expose yourself to the language as much as possible, right? So
Right.
you can simulate that, make it artificial
Right.
immersion. You can have Egypt at home instead of going to Egypt. You can have Egypt at home. Um,
Well,
eat
well, the
your
good part of it.
Ali and
Yeah.
yeah, eat your Ali and kushari
Right.
and simulate
Well,
that. Yeah,
that's one thing actually that I really liked, and also the development that you made in terms of, our class sizes were made intentionally for
mm,
people to be able to practice
yeah,
speaking.
mm,
And I love the fact that we have the breakout options,
yeah,
in
yeah,
our the program that we use, so people can actually speak with each other, and
yeah,
actually be in the position of actually correcting one another with your oversight.
yeah.
So every student gets a chance to speak and actually practically use the
Mm,
language,
mm,
so that it overcomes the obstacle of, okay, now I know the rule, but I don't know
mm.
how it's function. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 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 exactly. So that is related to another obstacle. Like, I'm sorry to keep,
That was great. Yeah.
bring that back up, but
So many
and
obstacles.
that's fear. The obstacle of fear.
Right.
People
Right.
are afraid to make mistakes,
For sure.
and
Yeah, yeah.
that happens for different reasons.
Right.
One of them is the language learning approach that a lot of Arabic programs and institutes adapt, and that is the what's known as the grammar translation approach, right? And
Right.
that grammar translation approach focuses on high accuracy. So you're learning all about mubtada, khabar, shibhu jumla, this, that. And if you make the most like subtle mistake, you're like the biggest idiot in the world. You didn't know that word is mansub. You didn't know that word is majroor. Like, you're an idiot, right?
Right.
So
Right.
number one, we're not necessarily taking that approach. And number two, when you're in that room with that random person that you don't even know, if you said Ja'a Khalidan, Ja'a Khalidin, Ja'a
Right.
Khalid,
Right. Right. Right.
no one's gonna laugh at you, right?
Right.
You don't even know the person. The person is probably making a bigger mistake, right? So there's
Right.
no fear. There's nothing to be afraid of, right? And that's actually one of the advantages of the virtual classroom, right? Because if we were in a physical classroom, maybe if somebody asked a question, they'd feel embarrassed. But now I can put them in virtual rooms together. They converse with each other, and
100%.
there's nothing to be embarrassed about. So fear is a big obstacle, big obstacle.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I find.
One of the things also, like, you know this, man. Like, when you're in a grammar class, and there's always those, mashallah, there's two or three individuals that just know much more grammar or much better
Yeah,
Arabic because they've studied already and they're kind of reviewing.
yeah,
So if you make a mistake, oh my God, the grammar Nazis, are on
yeah,
par, right? They'll just jump
yeah.
on you, say, "ذهب خالداً,
Yeah.
astaghfirullah,"
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
you're just like, bro, calm down. You can,
Yeah,
and then you realize, mashallah, the brother has done like
yeah,
Arabic to the point of now he's
yeah.
done, i'rab of the Quran, and he's
Yeah,
just sitting
yeah,
in the
yeah.
classroom to just
Mm.
kind of like benefit from
Yeah.
the teacher or something.
Yeah, yeah, he
We have
studied.
that. We have people
Yeah.
who studying together and they're reviewing together. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, no, we like you said, there's always, I don't know how it works out, but there's always that one to three people that have more of a background. And alhamdulillah, they they know who they are. I think they're probably watching this. They know who they are.
Right, right, right.
No, they didn't cause any problems for the other students.
100%.
They didn't
Yeah.
make it more difficult for them.
Right.
On the contrary, I was one of those grammar Nazis. I was one of those people that the teacher would be talking about something, and I'd be in class, and I'd be like, "But you didn't mention the 18th opinion." And he's like, "Yo, shut up!
Right.
Like, who cares, right?"
Right.
Um, so yeah, that's alhamdulillah. We didn't have any issues like that at all. Alhamdulillah.
Great. I mean, that leads segues to another obstacle, and that is, honestly, look, sometimes people who may understand the grammar and the sarf, which is
Mm,
two huge things, but they struggle with building vocabulary. They
mm,
study with, they say, look, I understand. Like, there are people who have attended actually other programs and now are attending our program, and they said, you know
mm.
what, we didn't focus on this aspect.
Yeah.
How do you overcome this obstacle of just building vocabulary to use to actually be able to speak then?
Yeah. So even one of my students I'm teaching, he had studied Arabic for, I think, um 2 years, I think, or a year and a half or so, and he studied Arabic grammar and everything. And then we started reading we went through it. We started off with Arabiya Beni Yadayk level 3, and
Mhm.
I noticed that every single line there were probably 2 to 5 words he didn't know. And this is after having studied Arabic for about a year and a half. So
Right.
we went down to
A long
level
time.
1. Yeah, we went down to level 1, and then the vocab here was appropriate. There's a lot of vocab, in the very first lesson that he didn't know. So
Level appropriate vocabulary.
exactly. So
Mm.
I would say vocab, um the answer for any language, everyone's going to tell you the same thing. You need to take in as much of that language as possible, right? You need to read, you need to listen, and there are different techniques out there. You can Google it, space
Right.
repetition and things like that. You can do research on
Right.
that. You can create cue
Right.
cards. So just read as much as possible, and that's pretty much it. It's not there's no magic there's no secret formula where you're supposed to learn this overnight, which leads me to another obstacle, which is lack of patience when it comes to Arabic.
Right. Right.
People
Right. Right.
lack patience. I mean,
Right.
we the current generation grew up on what's known as minute rice. Have you heard of minute rice, Sheikh
Yeah.
Hasib?
Yeah. It's like a domi kind of concept.
It's there's no 2 hours of like soaking your basmati rice. We're talking 1 minute rice. You
2 hours, mashallah. Alone
At
better.
least 2 hours. Yeah, you gotta.
Your cooking skills, man.
Yeah, we'll talk about cooking. That's another episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later, inshallah.
Yeah. So the thing is, people, like, we live in a society where there's minute rice. You go to
Mm.
store, buy this rice, microwave it, and the rice is ready. This is what people are used to, right? And they want this, like, sort of remember that scene from The
Arabic.
Matrix? Yeah, you know that scene from Matrix where he wakes up and he's like, I know kung fu. Like,
Right,
people want to
right,
just
right.
download Arabic into their brains.
Download Arabic into your mind, right?
Habibi, if that was possible, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now, right?
I
It
know, right?
doesn't work like
Sell it for $3 million and you get it.
that. Exactly. So it requires patience, and maybe you can talk to us about patience. You're the sheikh.
No, but look, one thing I think we're helping with that. I mean, I was going to mention this later, but we just posted it
Mm.
up right now in terms of that, just to help us in a practical way. We have Shazia; she's one of our students.
Oh yes,
We didn't ask her to do this. It's not like sequence or time. She
yeah.
she took the first term, and she said after taking the first term, I noticed a big change. Alhamdulillah. I'm able to identify words in the Quran, and every day, even one day when I was doing dua, I found myself making dua in Arabic. So this practical notion of outcome comes based on effort,
Yeah.
right? So if you're doing the tasks, if you're understanding the vocabulary and building, it will actually immediately help you in
Mm.
the components of Arabic
Mm.
grammar, in
Mm.
understanding your dua, understanding the Quran. By the
Mm.
way, the funniest thing, man, was um, I actually tested my mom, and I didn't tell you this, by the way. This is the first time I'm telling you this. Okay, my mom took your term one, right? So this is like the biggest revelation
Really?
of mankind. Yeah, she took the term
This
one.
is news to me, guys. This is news to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Play it.
so my mom I asked her, I was like, Mom, how was your Arabic? She's like, SubhanAllah, she's taken Arabic, and I'm not negging Arabic programs in the Masajid.
Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
taken Arabic programs in the masjid, but I found myself now, like before, kind of lost when I'm reading Ma'arif al-Quran, which is the tafsir,
Mm.
book, which has been translated multi volumes. And she said I wouldn't understand some of the concepts that the author was discussing. She says now, subhanAllah, I get all of them because we've done sarf, we've done
Mm.
the grammars, and it's become immediately like practical to me because those things
Wow.
come up.
Wow.
So again, it's based on what? It's based on a person kind of
Mm.
employing the language, right? So for me, vocabulary was huge because bro, that's how you speak. And by the way, we have 2 other videos for those of you listening.
Mm.
You can go and directly learn about it, inshallah, more. Sheikh Dirie and I did another video
Mm.
called Learning Arabic as Non-Arabs, to talk about some
Mm.
practical things of how to go
Mm.
about it. And we also have Arabic pro tips with Sheikh Salman, which he talks about pro tips from
Mm.
his perspective. So there's plenty
Mm.
of resources out there for all of you. It's on the Legacy Institute YouTube
Mm.
channel page. You can just
Mm.
go there and just click on the playlists.
mm,
for legacy discussions, and you can click on the
mm,
playlist for
mm,
pro tips. But the idea being is,
mm,
look, I mean, Jazakallah khair for Shazia for sharing that wonderful experience
mm,
from yourself, a student who actually took our seminar. But I just want to emphasize this component of
mm,
vocabulary, and that is, if you take the term seriously, you will see an immediate result in your speaking and
mm,
using the language.
mm,
And I think Sheikh Dirie, does a great job in doing that. One of the things I want to move on to, inshallah, and maybe we can close off
mm,
with regards to another obstacle before we take some questions. We talked about immediate gratification, and honestly, look, we say to everyone, just to answer that in one simple way: give us 8 terms, we will give you the promise that we will help you to get to it, if as long as you have the effort. 8 terms, and that's literally a 6-term 18-month foundational Arabic commitment, and then 2-month Arabic enrichment, meaning
mm,
you're actually employing the language. We're going to be doing that as a add-on to our program, but essentially in these 18 months you will have foundational Arabic that will lead on to our Arabic enrichment terms, which will help you to, inshallah, literally see your Arabic knowledge applied.
mm,
The last obstacle that we have here in our list that we wanted to discuss is the daunting task of grammar.
mm.
So, bro, I used to hate grammar like it was stuff. I loved broccoli now. That was also one of the things we were indoctrinated with to hate. I don't know why, dude. Like every good thing they made us dislike cartoons. Cartoons that made you think like vegetables are bad and whatever. So you started
Yeah, yeah,
disliking
yeah,
vegetables until you actually had them. You're like, wait a minute, sweet
yeah.
potatoes are amazing,
Amazing.
broccoli is amazing,
Yeah, yeah.
yams are amazing,
Kale is amazing.
yeah. Like anyway, so that's a separate story. Like me and
Yeah.
psychology.
Mm,
But how do you overcome this notion of grammar is horrible? I hate grammar. This obstacle of I don't want to study grammar, or grammar is too daunting. I have a fear of grammar. I have nightmares about it at night. How do you overcome it?
as a instructor or when I was learning Arabic?
Both. First
Okay.
learning and then instruction show.
Honestly, this kind of answers both actually. It all depends on your teacher. One of my best or favorite sheikhs that I had was there is a grammarian, and I would spend a lot of time with him. We would hang out. He taught me a lot of Arabic grammar, and we would literally just have fun with it. You know what I mean? We would just have fun with it. I remember being at a restaurant with him in Riyadh, and there was a sign that said "Mamnu' al-julus," "Mamnu' al-julus,"
Okay, wow.
and he looks at it. He's like, "What's the i'rab of that? Like,
Mhm.
analyze that. All right. Like, what's the
That's
grammatical analysis of that?" I was like, "What do you
right,
mean? Like,
right, right.
we
It's,
only
it's like a sign for
it's a sign. You don't analyze the sign." He's like, "Let's do it."
right, right, right.
Right. So he was like, so I tried, I failed horribly. And then he taught me through that. And and then we go back to eating our kepsa, our rice and chicken. We go
Nice.
back to eating that. So
So we'll
we
have
had a lot of,
sessions maybe one day, and you can tell us, ممنوع الشرب or
yeah,
something.
ممنوع الجلوس. Yeah. Yeah. That's خبر مبتدا محذوف. Yeah.
There you
So
go.
the point is, it all goes back to the teacher, right? And I think we discussed this last time. I think it was one of the ulama, one of the mashayikh was mentioning that, and this isn't a Western phenomenon only. Even like in the East, a lot of the Arabs complain about how hard grammar is, how boring it is, and it's people who hated Arabic ended up Arabic teachers, and they were kind of forced
Right,
yeah, yeah.
because of socioeconomic issues.
So yeah, exactly. So they hated their lives.
Yeah, right,
They made people hate Arabic grammar. So that's what
right,
that
right.
sheikh
Or
said.
they were themselves tortured into this.
Exactly. So it all depends on your teacher. All depends on, and I don't think there are many things that are difficult in this world. Um, some people overcomplicate things. And personally, the way when I go about teaching Arabic grammar, so the first term it's delayed. We don't do much Arabic grammar as a subject in the first term. It's like I mentioned, introduced naturally and through conversations, things like that. Um,
Mhm.
and then afterwards, when it is introduced as a separate class, I give as many examples as possible. I give the English equivalent, because a lot of things, there's a lot of overlap between English and Arabic. So I'll say this is the exact same thing in English. This is a direct object, indirect object, or possessive pronoun, or things like that, right? So I try to give as many um, examples and things like that as possible. And alhamdulillah, it seems to have worked. Good feedback from the students.
Great, mashallah, Allahumma barik. One thing that just we wanted to segue off before we take any questions
Mhm.
is the um, concept of uh, what is the end result that you have for students? What should they get out of this in overcoming the obstacles and finally getting to the end line? What should we um expect for a student to engage in this program?
What should they expect when they at the end of the program?
Yeah.
As an instructor, my goal is to make the student as independent as possible. That is
Mm,
my goal.
nice.
I am not guaranteeing, you're gonna be the next Sibaway. For those who don't know, for those of you who don't know who that is,
Like the
arguably
granddaddy of Arabic grammar.
yeah, the dawn of Arabic grammar.
Okay, great.
um,
Godfather is a little bit not
yeah, let's not go there. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not claiming that, but I truly believe at the end of it, the person will be completely self-sufficient. All they would need is an Arabic dictionary, and like you mentioned earlier, that last leg of the course, we're gonna take some books like Tafsir ibn Juzay, take Juz Amma, take another book of spirituality or whatever it may be. We'll decide exactly. Maybe, yeah, we'll figure that out later. And to read it, break it down word for word. What does that word mean? How do we find it in the dictionary? And that's kind of what I do right now already. And that's just term one. So by then it'll be a lot easier. I think we'll have it'll be a lot more enjoyable once the students are at a level where they can identify all the sarf patterns, know all the grammar, etc. Um, so I think they will be completely self-sufficient.
Okay, great, mashallah. Um, any other obstacles that you have in mind before we go on to the Q&A?
I think we have. I don't how much time do we have left in this? I think a couple of
We
minutes.
have probably like 10 more minutes, inshallah.
10 more minutes. You want to just take the Q&A, because I think I saw one in the
Yeah.
Instagram as well.
Okay, great. We have a number of questions, mashallah,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just going to go down the list here.
Mm-hmm.
We have a bunch of questions online. Alhamdulillah, we have as well our students joining us.
Students,
Two of them.
who's
Yeah,
here?
mashallah. Amina is here. We have Shazia.
Shazia,
Or, sorry,
mashallah.
Amina's maybe not one of our students.
No, she's not. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, she's not. Okay, so let me just go ahead and read some of the direct
Sure.
questions. Okay, I'll just read down. Which books do you recommend to understand the Noble Quran? Well, we just recommend our entire program because our program is set to understand the Noble Quran. It's very straightforward. We use Al Arabiyyatu Bayna Yadayk, which is our groundwork in grammar, and then we supplement it with a program that Sheikh Dirie has made in Sarf. So it's his own personal program. In 10 lessons, you'll have morphology, which is basically the construction of Arabic words, and then you have it being supplemented with another grammar text in 10 lessons in term 2, and then we supplement it with other readings, inshallah, throughout the terms. Sheikh Dirie maybe can speak about it, unless I covered everything.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's
Great.
half of it is Arabiya Bayni Yadayk, and the other half is a sort of curriculum that I designed, which takes people from past tense, present tense, the command, the ism fa'il,
Great.
ism maf'ul, the active participle, the passive participle, the verbal nouns, the passive voice, past and present for all the 3-letter verbs, the thulathi, all the way to the 6-letter patterns.
Great.
Basically all that, and we learn how to conjugate all those verbs. So then when we look at Arabiya Bayni Yadayk, right,
You see the
we
apply.
conjugate that. Yeah, we apply it. So for example, I'll say like um, I don't know, for example, mada ta'kulu, what are you eating? I would ask, how would you ask a woman, what are you eating? ماذا
Right,
تأكلين,
right,
right?
right,
How
right.
do you ask? Then I'll ask a student, how do you say, what did she eat? ماذا, right? أكلت. So
Right.
we conjugate that while we're learning Arabiya Bini Adik. So that's what we're doing. So,
Great.
and then
Awesome.
once we learn, that's first term. All that I just mentioned is first term. By second term, once we learn more of the grammar, then I can add more to my questions when we're doing Arabiya
Of
Bini
course.
Adik.
So it's more and more applied as you learn more. It's a graded kind of learning.
Exactly.
Great. Amina asked this question: what would you recommend to watch or listen to expose ourselves to the language? Does it make a difference that they speak modern Arabic and not the classical one in these podcasts and programs? For example, the news or Captain Magic or whatever, right?
Yeah.
We've before Sheikh Diri answers, we did speak about it in length in our program in our YouTube video called "Learning Arabic as Non-Arabs." It's on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page, so we talked about that in great length. And also on the pro tips for learning Arabic pro tips. There's 2 or 3 videos also on our YouTube channel. Check that out for sure, and I'll let Sheikh Diri answer this as well.
Yeah, I'll just make one quick comment, and that is read what interests you. That's the most important thing. If you're learning Arabic, and it depends what level you're at as well, right? But if you feel like you're comfortable with Arabic, and this is one thing I recommend students do, is one of two things. There are novels that are translated into Arabic. So I remember having The Alchemist, the novel by Paulo, whatever.
Right,
Um,
right.
on one side it will be English, other side will be Arabic, right?
Mm.
I think Sheikh Hasib can talk about the theological issues in that book, but that's we're
No,
discussing language. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
we'll
So
leave it
for
at that.
like
Yeah,
honestly, I don't really. I
yeah,
love exposing people. People ask me like, "Oh, is it haram to read this?" I'm like, Habibi, if you benefit from something from a language perspective, and you theologically have a foundation, I mean, you're
yeah,
not a kid for me to regulate for you whether something is going to benefit you or not, right?
exactly. Yeah,
I mean, how many of us have read Harry Potter and we know that this is like, the whole thing is shirk from beginning to end. But the idea being is it was a linguistic
Mm,
help for a lot of kids to be just entertained
mm,
and also get into reading. I mean, anybody will kind of get to that. And then, of course,
interesting.
some people will have their own opinions with regards to, okay, this has a negative connotation in children and maybe building magic. At the end of the day, it's your own personal
Mm,
discretion. Everyone has a point of view in what
gotcha.
you read. So,
Good.
but I think
Yeah.
that point that you made beautifully is reading what you're interested in. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just to quickly wrap that up, so the book will have Arabic on one side, English on the other. That's a great. It doesn't have to be that book; it can be any book. There's a lot of books like that. Another tip would be take a subject you like, right, and read biographies of those ulama. So let's say you love
Oh yes,
um, uh, Arabic, right? So Suyuti has his Bughiyatul Wa'at, right, which is a 2 volume
right.
book on the
I remember you were
biographies.
binging that, man. You were sending us these really cool
I think
anecdotes of their sources.
yeah, a lot of benefits, right? So read something like that because you like Arabic, or let's say you like tafsir, right? There's I think Dhahabi
بعض
has
المفسرين and Imam Ibn
yeah,
Kathir,
yeah,
سير
طبقات
أعلام
المفسرين.
النبلاء.
Yeah, so read biographies of those people in that subject you like. That's just another quick thing. I think we have
Legit.
less than a minute left.
We have time. We have time unless you're pressed. We
I'm
can
I'm I'm
take a
good.
few questions.
I'm good.
Oh,
Yeah.
great, awesome. We have a few good questions. That's why. Saints can't fly. I'm sure this is Khalid, my man from Dallas. I think is this program for beginners? Sometimes I feel like the legacy courses are too advanced. So I'll answer the beginning portion. I'll let you get at the end of it.
Sure.
Let me tell you something. We have Alhamdulillah in legacy. What we want to do is we want to give an opportunity for people to have substance based education and learning, not just beyond. And I'm not negging motivational things. That's excellent, has its uses, but we want to cater to every level of learning. So we have introductory, because alhamdulillah, we just rolled out introductory usul study, literally from the beginning of usul for you to understand in depth. We're creating a complete program. Arabic studies as well. So if you go to legacy.institute/Arabic-legacy, I'll put it up online. You have our 2 legacy programs. Okay, you have Arabic legacy, which is with Sheikh Diri, and you have Ma'ani Nahu with Sheikh Faisal, which is advanced Arabic and learning, advanced application of grammar, called by a book by Sheikh Sam al-Ra'i known as Ma'ani Nahu, which means the meaning of grammar. So what we want you to do is, like Sheikh Dirie beautifully said, is he wants you to get independent by the end of this program, meaning you will be able to then take our intermediate program and get to our advanced. And I don't know how to say this in so many different ways without being pretentious or anything, but alhamdulillah that Allah blessed us to have these kind of teachers, in essence, to take us from a foundational Arabic program like Arabic Legacy is that we're talking about now. It is made for beginners, for people who know how to read and write at the very minimum, because that's something that's cursory. You can get it done in a month or something before this, and then start learning Arabic in our foundational program in 6 terms, and then an additional 2 terms for Arabic linguistic enrichment and application, essentially reading tafsir and the books of spirituality and so on, so forth, that we've discussed already. So it is made for beginners, absolute beginners. But again, you have to know at least reading and writing. I want to make sure that's very clear. Anything else to add, Shahir?
No, that's exactly what I was going to mention. The prerequisite is that you have to be able to read Quran fluently. You know all the letters, you know all the harakat, and that is it. You don't need to know anything else. Alhamdulillah, we had initially, when I made that video, that promo video, I thought that our youngest student was 16. Ended up being a 12-year-old girl. Yeah, a 12-year-old girl from the UK. So the youngest was actually 12. No, 12, and she loved it. And the oldest, I think, was 60 something. Yeah, so 60 something. And they both loved it. Like, the spectrum. So alhamdulillah, as long as you know how to read alif bata, fatha, kasra, dhamma, sukoon, right? You're good.
Great, awesome. It's Maryam. She says, have any of your students said how many hours per week they put in?
I don't know. I don't remember asking them, but the course would require a couple of hours a week. I would, because the classes are from an hour and a half to 2 hours twice a week. Saturday, Sunday for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then throughout the week, there is going to be homework, right? Which shouldn't take you long, probably half an hour. It's good to always review your vocab that comes weekly. That might take another half an hour to an hour. And then we do have quizzes and final exam, which will take some time to study. I don't have an exact number of hours that the average student.
We put in the
we did, yeah, you're right.
Course description in the website an hour to an hour and a half outside of the 2 days. Outside of those 2 days, an hour to an hour and a half of extra time that you just need to do the homework and overlook the sessions. And I think for the vast majority of students that I've spoken to, that's a good rough estimate. An hour,
so 5 hours a week. So 5 hours, yeah.
Right, outside of the classroom. So including the classroom, that would be that's how much. So inshallah, it's very doable. We have a question for you here. Muslim rockstar, mashallah, Allahumma barik. He went to Hajj with me, so Muslim rockstar went to Hajj with me. Anyway, may Allah bless him.
Is he a rock star for real?
I don't know, man. Maybe we can have a discussion session with him. That's a good question. How many hours per week is needed to be successful as I try to balance this with other obligations? And we've answered this already. That's why I'm emphasizing it. Again, 1 to 1 hour and a half outside of the curriculum time, which is set. Okay, so there's another question here by Maryam. At the end of this program, will one be able to speak and have conversation with another in Arabic?
Okay, so one of the challenges here is most Arabs today speak their local dialect, right? So this is one of the challenges of Arabic. Moroccan Arabic, very different from Egyptian Arabic, very different from Saudi Arabic, very, very different. So what this program will give you is a more closer to modern standard Arabic. Some of it's Fusha, some of it's modern standard Arabic. I don't want to get too much into that, which is a more easier form of classical Arabic. And as long as the person is educated, they will be able to converse with you. Right. I don't mean that offensive.
I know what you're trying to say. Yeah.
But if the person's more,
the idea being is in a non-politically correct way is that there's so many different dialects, right?
Yeah.
That a person essentially you will, and I'm just saying this in a very straightforward way. People who study Arabic language will sometimes have more knowledge of grammar than the native Arabic speaker.
Mhm.
So what happens is when they're speaking in their dialects, you actually will have more knowledge of Arabic grammar than that individual. So it'll be more difficult for you to converse with a person speaking in a
Mhm.
dialect if it's a very strong dialect.
Mhm.
And if the person then has knowledge of Arabic, like he's saying he's educated, they will be able to converse with you. But
Mhm.
if you're speaking to a person who has zero understanding of Arabic grammar, you're going to have this reality that we all face when we
Mhm.
went to Arabic countries and we're like, wait a minute, nobody's speaking here proper Arabic. Like we're
Yeah.
in the land of
Yeah.
we're in the land of no Arabic, but everybody's Arab, and that's why
Yeah.
one of my teachers he joked, and I'm not going to mention the country because we don't want to offend anyone, right? But he's basically somebody mentioned like Sheikh is such and such country good to study? He's like they don't speak Arabic, like straightforward. That's how he said
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
were just cracking up because they speak in dialect. And I think that's what Sheikh Dirie is saying.
W-
You will have the ability to conversate, but then
Yeah.
understanding dialects, God help us all and our
I think we all know exactly which country you're talking about.
yeah,
But
no comments.
the thing is, when it comes to the dialects, everyone's going to recommend and tell you you start with classical Arabic or modern standard Arabic, and then you move on to the dialects. That's the natural way to learn the dialects. Don't start the dialects right away. It's going to be overwhelming and difficult. Just
Yeah,
start with Fusha, and then move on to other things like that. Inshallah.
right. And unfortunately, that's what some university programs do. They make you pick a dialect to learn, and you
Oh,
have to study the basic foundations.
yeah,
Every university, I think, in America does that,
yeah.
and unfortunately, that's what causes what we see. People like who've
Mm,
attended, I think, multiple semesters in university, they've attended our program. They said the same thing.
yeah,
They're like,
yeah,
I didn't learn anything. I just
yeah,
teaching
yeah,
you how to
yeah,
be, such and such dialect.
yeah, yeah,
Cool,
yeah.
awesome. We have Gerard Osman who said, "Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi."
I know, Jarad.
Can someone who already has some Arabic knowledge but has holes in his knowledge join?
I just don't know why he didn't message me directly. I know. I
Oh, you know
think
the
he.
brother.
I know.
MashaAllah.
I know him very well.
Great, great.
I just don't know how to say his name properly. Garad. I think Garad. I think.
Gerard, go ahead,
I
brother.
think he's probably laughing right now. Yeah. So we did have some students that, like I mentioned, there was one student who had a minor in Arabic. I don't know if I told you, Sheikh Hazib. There
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a student who had a minor in Arabic, took six university courses in Arabic. He
MashaAllah.
was in the class, and he pretty much complained exactly about what you said. It was just the Egyptian dialect they were learning and watching movies and stuff. Um, he said that he didn't benefit that much. There was another student.
Film songs.
Yeah, yeah, he probably learned Kulthum and
Right,
Nancy. Um, so there was him. There was another student that studied two courses, full courses. There were 5 hours a week of Arabic in university. There was another, probably two other students that started a more intense Arabic program. I'm not going to mention the institute, but for health reasons, they weren't able to complete it. So they had it all depends on you and how you are as a learner. Some people get frustrated hearing things that they already know, right? It gets really boring hearing something you already know. Um, so for sure, if someone has some background in Arabic, and this is a common issue, right? People study a program and then they realize, or they skip through different programs. They start this program, go to another program, and next thing you know, they have holes, like massive holes in their language.
right.
Um, and so they have to start from a program from scratch. If you're patient enough, I would recommend it. But if you feel like it's gonna get too boring, I already know that. I already know
Or in, like
Tafawud.
term two or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. But the problem with joining term two is you might have missed all the sarf.
I know.
You didn't do the sarf in term one. Um, so yeah, it depends on the person.
We had a number of students actually ask that question, and they signed up with term one because of that. Because
Mm,
the way that we get this question often is, well, I've done some Arabic already. I
mm,
don't know where exactly to start. So I said, the way we answered it from our perspective is said, listen, we cover al arabiyatu bayna yadayk
mm,
in the terms of the grammar and the vocabulary and the
mm,
discussions. That's the foundation where we then stem off of and do our own things.
mm,
Why don't you look at level one, book one, and level one, book two, level two, book
mm,
one, level two, book two, and
mm,
see where it fits within you. keeping in mind that we do sarf in 10 lessons in term one. And
Yeah.
almost every one of them said when they looked at the book and exactly what you mentioned, they may have studied before, but when they're actually reading the text of Arabiyyat Bayn Yadayk, they don't understand it. So every single one of them so far has gone back to and said, you know what, I'm going to start with Arabic term one. So just to give you guys for those of you who are saying I've already studied Arabic, I want to know where to start off with. That's a good marker. Have you done sarf before? And if you haven't, we covered in 10 lessons in term one. And number two, go to Al Arabiyyat Bayn Yadayk, second edition, and look at book one and book two for level one and see where you are in your comprehension. That's the best thing.
Another option is to register for the on-demand course. We made an on-demand course, right?
Right.
So what was taught previously can be you can purchase that, you can listen to that as an on-demand course, and then you can catch up because I think when is class starting? 2 weeks roughly.
Yeah, we have the thing for you.
Yeah, so in roughly about 2 weeks, class is starting. What you can do is purchase that, listen through that, get caught up, and then start term two with us, or you can attend it live because next term we're doing both. I'm doing term one again, and I'm doing term two for the 100 or so people that were with us for term one. Another thing, and I don't know if I should mention this. Basically, you can always, even if you have a background in Arabic and you want to do term one again, you can always do it, but more at a higher level. Like be with us, but analyze the material more. Look up synonyms for words and take it at a more advanced level. Does that make sense? Like I remember when I was in the Arabic program in Saudi, I remember when I was in the second term, I was really bored. I don't think I ever told you a story, Hasib. I was really bored. I was in the second term of the university Arabic program, and I was probably at a higher level. I definitely was. But I remember we had a hadith class. It was like twice a week. And instead of just looking at the hadith and doing the basic exercises, I said, I'm going to take this more seriously. I took that hadith book. I think Medina University had a similar hadith book, right? Like 15 hadith or 20 hadith you do in the semester. Right? I took that and I was like, I'm going to write a commentary on this. I took that book, went to the library, and I remember writing like literally, without any exaggeration, probably 20-page sharh, 20-page commentary on just that one hadith of Umar ibn Abi Salama. Now, yeah, so you can make it more challenging for yourself if you want, basically.
100%. Okay, great. So basically, in conjunction with taking Arabic, starting with term two, but catching up with term one in a faster pace than we would normally take. That option is available to you, inshallah. We'll just message us on admin@email.legacy. Admin@legacy.institute, and we'll cater to you, or just go ahead and purchase it, inshallah, and you can deal with it, inshallah. We have here Larayb. She says, I've only been able to sign up for term one currently. Will there be an opportunity to continue the whole course, inshallah? Of course there is. You can go and sign up 3 different ways. I mean, let me just share this with you now. I was going to do it later. If you look at our website here, you have the Arabic 1 course. You have 3 options. I can just zoom in here. You have 3 options of how you want to take this course. You have right here term 1 term. You have option to take 3 terms. And then you have the option to take all 6 terms. Obviously, we did a price fluctuation and discount off, etc., so on and so forth. Larayb, if you've already purchased and you wanted to purchase the entire program, just go ahead and email admin@legacy.institute. Our admin team will take care of you, inshallah, and give you the whatever the pricing for all 6 terms if you want that ahead of time. We've made this option available for ease for people who want to pay in installments or whatever. Or you can pay for the entire program. Again, the first 6 terms, not including the last 2 terms, which will be a separate applied linguistics enrichment for those people who already know Arabic, etc. But again, the link is easily accessible. Just go to legacy.institute/academy, or just go to legacy.institute, click on this link. You'll see Academy or Arabic Legacy. Either one works. You get to this site, inshallah.
If I could just add one note there. If somebody wants to sponsor a student,
I forgot about that. Good.
Yeah, do you want to mention that?
Go ahead.
Basically, we try to accommodate for everybody. Um, we want to have as many students as possible, but in order to make it fair for everybody, we can't just accept everybody, right? And last term, alhamdulillah, we had some people who sponsored some of the students. It was great. So if you're somebody who wants to sign up yourself, or for whatever reason you can't sign up and you want someone else to benefit, you can definitely sponsor a program, 1 term, 2 terms, 5 terms. You can sponsor 2 people, 5 people, whatever it is, right? So just do contact us and let us know that you want to sponsor a student, because that would be very, very, very useful for those students.
Great. That's a great mention. I completely forgot to mention that. We're going to take last maybe 2 questions because more questions are coming in, but we're running out of time.
We have some comments on Instagram as well. Did you read those?
Right. Yeah, I do. Abida is saying, is term 2 at the weekends? Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Very straightforward.
I
Hannah,
can tell she's British. They say at the weekend. In the UK, they say at the weekend. In America, we say, in Canada, on the weekend. I'm confused now. We say on the weekend. We say on the weekend. In the UK, they say at the weekend, which always sound weird.
So, Hannah mentioned Sheikh Drew's amazing Arabic teacher. Jazakumullah khair. Class was so fun, interactive, and I learned a lot. May Allah bless you. Thank you for your comment. We have here, let me just get the last couple questions in here. Talha says, the terms, are they in succession? Will there be a term 2 after April? Yes, they are. We've had 2 batches. So one batch has already done it. April, the first batch of Arabic Legacy. They're on term 2. And now we are starting term 1, January 16th, consecutively, meaning alongside term 2 for the first batch. It is a brand new batch, and they will continue with their batch. So they will continue with term 2 and so on and so forth. And we hope, inshallah, based on numbers, based on people's interest, we hope to start a new batch based on also schedule and also our scaling. But that's how we're going to do it, and basically have term 1 and term 2 consecutive, inshallah. We have a question here. Regards to you both in the study, especially you are doing an amazing job. I actually didn't think of the question. No lesson. Would you recommend this for someone who speaks and reads Arabic fluently but is looking for a program to sharpen their skills?
No. If you already know Arabic, was there an Arab? There was, I think we had a couple of students. Yeah, we had a couple of students who were Arabs, but only knew the slang, like the lugha darija.
Yes, we have a few. We
had at least 2 that I remember.
Right.
A brother who was Algerian and a brother who I think was Syrian or Palestinian.
Yeah, Palestinian.
The thing is, some of those dialects are so far off Fusha Arabic. It's like they felt like they were learning Arabic min jadid, like
right
from the beginning. So it depends.
What language is this? I think my grandparents speaking
it. Yeah. So it depends actually. M94. If you're coming from Arabic dialect that's so far off and you find yourself not understanding like anything to do with Fusha, then ahlan wa sahlan.
Yeah. And also just give you a heads up, if you didn't have that break, that you already have that level of Arabic grammar, etc. We have another what's it called? Another course, which is an advanced course. Again, the one I was telling you about, it's a 2-term course. It's called Ma'ani al-Nahu, which means the meaning of Arabic grammar, in essence, by a book by Sheikh Samarai. The first term is on demand. The second term is going to go live, inshallah, in January as well. And in 2 terms, you go over 4 volumes of Arabic grammar, knock yourself out, inshallah. You can go with Sheikh Faisal, and he'll answer whatever questions you have as well. Exactly. Last but not least, we have the final question here. Danielle Sasa mentions, how long is a single term? And that's mentioned right in the flyer, January 16th to April 11th. Let me just...
It's about 12, 13 weeks. Right. And then we break for necessary break. So this term we just finished, we had to break for the holiday season and whatnot, and then we're going to start again, and that's going to run all the way till Ramadan, and then we'll stop for Ramadan. Then right after Ramadan we'll do another term. So each term is about roughly 3 weeks. Roughly. Oh, sorry, 3 months. 3 months.
Yeah, I was like 3. Mashallah, super English Arabic.
minute rice.
That about wraps up our entire sessions. Jazakum al khair, Sheikh Deer, for your time. This legacy discussion has been great. I always appreciate it. But alhamdulillah, I've learned myself a lot as well. Contemporary obstacles in learning Arabic. If you liked the discussion, inshallah, please send us a comment. If you have other questions, maybe we can address maybe in our future. Please comment as well for those of you listening to this afterward. We hope that you, inshallah, sign up to our Arabic legacy program just to make it easy, accessible, attainable. That's our motto. That's what we live by. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless Sheikh Deary for his time, and may Allah bless you all for joining us. We'll see you all, inshallah ta'ala, on another legacy discussion or very soon in Arabic Legacy, which is starting January 16th. You can sign up at legacy.institute. Just go there, inshallah, you'll find it very easily. If you have any questions, make sure to email us. May Allah bless you all, and to all a good night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.